recently rezoned partially. We look at the zoning map, got partial B1, R3, and M1. Of course, the M1 would be is limited to the storage units. So it's anticipated that this 2 acres would in all likelihood be connected to the front 3 acres on the adjacent parcel, which is also owned by Madison Holdings. It really kind of depends on what sort of business activity will go there. I think we're pretty much given the location on the near the US 29, that it would be some sort of a retail type business that would probably capture folks from off of 29. I did send comments to VDOT, and you can see my email to them that essentially when we get a site plan is when they would analyze it. And I think, not think, but we would require the entrance to have an engineer design with it being a signal there. I know I've talked to the VDOT folks before about that. I mean, a signal intersection is one of the highest standards they have. So some of the neighbors that I've met with in that general area have some concerns. Probably the namely being, that the intersection at 29, there's some concern over. I felt like the timing on the light. Maybe some people were running that light. I was just there the other day. I've gone through it several times in the last few days. 29 is probably 29 there probably gets 20,000 trips a day. So there's a lot of traffic that goes through that stoplight. I will pull the accident data off the top of my head. I don't think it's really anything that stands out as a problematic area, but I think people are cautious there. And it is obviously an intersection where you want to try to avoid any accidents on that part of 29. As far as the proffers go, and talking to Mr. O'Bannon, a small thing that I think he's agreeable to, he has been on the other site, is limiting it. Any future development, whether he develops it or someone else, would be limited to a monument style sign. It's a small thing, but I do think it does look better, the monument style signs. The second is, and I think we need to work on this language, but if required is the right word, but if this is a different development from what's adjacent, that 3 acres to the south, then we would want to see this connected, the parking lots. And I think that's just kind of common sense, but all too often you will see, I use Ruckerville as a case in point of, is you'll have sometimes adjoining properties where you can't get through the property. So I think having an interparcel connection, if in always possible, I think just part of a site plan submittal, so we know if anything moves forward on it after we move for the site plan, is that we will review landscaping and buffering. Don't necessarily have to set any hard requirements. I mean, I kind of agree if there's a parcel that makes sense to look at the zoning map that be commercial. I think this one makes a lot of sense. It doesn't back up to any residential areas. It is obviously across the street from a church, but I think some landscaping could be appropriate. And then obviously, just to kind of state what will be required, but a licensed engineer would have to design the entrance. And we'll have VDOT's comment on any entrance design. So again, not knowing exactly what the use would be given the location, it's adjoining to a commercial area. I think this makes sense, and personally, just my feeling is I'm comfortable with maybe not knowing exactly what the use would be, but understanding that some sort of a retail grocery or something to that effect would likely be a good fit for that. So that parcel. So that's all I have. And any other maybe this, I know we're still kind of waiting on, far as water and sewer. Water's a little easier to obtain. Sewer, we're still waiting on, a study to see what the capacity would be there, and would make perfect sense. Just gravity right down to the sewer plant, but of course, um, whether that will have the capacity or not, it still remains to be seen.
Okay. Any questions for Ligon or any comment on this? No questions?
Don't be shy.
Yeah. Okay. All right. In that case, would the applicant like to address the planning commission?
I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Okay.
I tell you, I've just gotten out of the house for 5 days. I've got real bad asthma. And I'll be happy to answer any questions you can give me. In fact, I just had to take a shot of Primatine a bit ago. But I'll be glad to ask any questions. But mainly, we want to probably join it on with the 3-acre piece. Obviously, in a engineering way to engineer this thing, I'm not a certified engineer, but I've done a lot of them. And we would come off of Fishback Road. We obviously wouldn't want to come off of 29 because you already have a light there, and that's where it'd be Fishback Road. So that's main I can say. I don't know exactly what we're going to do there. Like he just said, we have a water, we have a house there now that's got a well and a septic system on it. Now, obviously, if you put a business there, that probably wouldn't work. We're still, as you know, Rappahannock Service Authority is on the sewer. I own 22 sewer taps for those parcels that we have talked about. Of course, I'm going to probably have to have one for the storage units, which is down near the sewer plant. And because of the way one-bedroom apartments are being built, I can get 32 or 33 one-bedroom units, the way they calculate the water, not the sewer uses. Now, water is not going to be a problem. I understand they have plenty of water. And of course, they've been, I don't know if I should say this or not, but Rappahannock Service Authority has been studying this thing for 48 years. I've owned this thing for 48 years. So, I don't know what they're going to do. I don't know what they're going to do. I know what they got to do. They need to do something.
All right. Francois, do you have a question? You want to turn your mic on there? Thank you.
Is it likely to be a gas station?
Pardon me, I can't.
Is it likely to be a gas station?
Is it likely to be a gas station? I don't know for sure. I don't know.
Thank you.
If it was, I would come with a site plan. I do not have any plans. I do not have any people. And the way the economy is today, I don't we're going to have any gas stations built for a while.
Maybe electric charging station.
And the way the interest rates are going up today, I know all you people are involved in zoning. That's the biggest zoning factor in the world, interest rates. It stopped more projects over my 50 years of doing this, and it's a problem.
Anyone else have a question for the applicant? Thank you. All right. Just on the off chance, is there anyone from the public that wants to make a comment on this? Nope. All right. Thank you. We'll move on to case number SU 07-22-
May I ask a question
Yeah,
before
sure,
we move on?
sure.
Now, I move on to the next meeting, which is in July.
July 6th, that's right.
And that's when the vote is
Mhm,
for
mhm.
the Board of Supervisors and the Planning Commission. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Mhm, sure. Okay, case number SU 07-22-17. Nicola Vivaldi has applied for a special use permit to operate an automotive repair shop on a 355.5 acre A1 agriculture zone parcel. In the A1 zoning district, an automotive repair shop is allowed by special use permit. The proposed shop would operate from an existing accessory structure located on the parcel. The parcel contains two address points, 6726 and 6730 South Seminole Trail, Rochelle, Virginia. The parcel is identified on Madison County's tax maps as 55-22. All right, Ligon?
So Milo is here. So we've kind of been through the garage thing a few times. I don't think the discussion over 3 acres per use is an issue here, as we said before. This building is pretty substantial, and you see it's still, if you look at the conditions, we've kind of, this has sort of been the conditions for the last several ones we have seen. It would not be transferable. The structure would need to be certified by an architect within a year if it's approved, and improvements necessary to bring it up to code. The bathroom, I talked to the health department. We're talking about a plan to decommission the pumping hall that was installed. Mr. Milo did not install that. That was there. A pumping hall system was installed to decommission that and do a temporary portage on until a drain field can be installed. I think 4 is probably the key here, is going out there. He does custom work, just a few customers at a time. Just a lot of renovations, older cars, totally. He had an old sort of classic truck that he was taking down to the chassis and rebuilding. So this is not a, I need to get my brake pads changed, bring it in kind of place. So he's voluntarily just said, hey, I'll have no more than 5 cars on the site at any time. So, and most of the vehicles do stay there for a while. So he might work on something for weeks at a time, and that's all he does. So I think that's kind of one of the key here. This is very, very small. I don't want to call it a hobby because it is something he does full time, but it is it's not a garage in the sense that, people come in and get their oil changed or things like that. That's not what it is. It's really a custom shop that does very specific work on mostly sort of older vehicles and restoration type jobs. And 5 is just sort of the standard. If you don't comply, if you don't have everything done within a year, then you could discontinue the use. Other than that, any questions for me or?
Anyone have a question for Ligon or any comment?
I have one comment. Share with you here, Steve. I would just say, Milo, I would recommend in Ligon, I understand the 5 or fewer vehicles at any given time. All that's good. There's plenty of space. Nobody can see it from the road. I mean, I wouldn't limit yourself to that. If somebody's bringing you $20,000 jobs, if they can leave them there and pick them up 18 months later, you want to be able to say yes to that. 10, 20. I mean,
Well, I was kind of getting more about traffic, just to kind of, just to sort of kind of, it's not like people come in and out, someone's dropping a car off, picking it up. I mean, we can eliminate it with the understanding this is what it is. We could, I'm whatever.
just
Okay.
just my recommendation, just to not make that.
Any other comment or question? Yes, Mike. You got, Pete?
Yes, I got a question to ask Sean. Sean, I remember some time ago, before your time, when Jack was here, and Clay may remember this, there was a big issue with what kind of liability did the county have on a pumping hall, if the truck turned over or something, hauling the sewage away. Is that an issue? Practically, yes. Legally, possibly not. But here's the problem. The only person who is offending is judgment proof. I'm sorry.
Oh, I didn't know you already. Sorry.
If the person who is offending is judgment proof, in other words, cannot pay it, and therefore cannot reimburse the county or whomever it is who has paid this cost, then yes, it's a liability for the county. I mean, the best policy, the best practice, obviously, is not to use pump and haul systems. For that reason, actually, I was driving back from Maryland last weekend and saw a honey wagon tipped over on the side of the road. And that's really what we're talking about. I mean, it's just it's a mess. And you've got biological issues, you've got toxic waste issues. To the extent that if it happens in Madison County is literally holding the bag, there is potential liability. Legally, should there be? The answer is no. It's just we're the ones who are going to have to deal with cleaning up the mess.
Well, that's, yeah, that's why I would say discontinue using it in. Well, I mean, that's just to give him time to get in, and it's the owner of the building that will do it. I think from talking to the health department, it's, if a truck leaves and has an accident, I mean, let Sean answer that. But really, the issue is if it's not maintained, then it falls on the county. So if it was to overflow or just be a system that's not not maintained, then I think that's where the kind of.
Well, it says out there August 1st, and this is just a thought. It says he's going to use a porta potty. Will you use a porta potty starting now instead of one from home? Or put it on somebody else? I'm just asking the question.
Yeah, I mean, I was just giving the owner of the building time to to get it squared up. I mean, you can get a porta potty as soon as possible.
I don't know if porta potty can, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I'll talk to Mr. Whiteman.
I can't guarantee that somebody's gonna have one by next week. I have to go around and see who the local company is and what their availability is.
They're generally pretty available.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of them, yes. Yeah, that's a very good
Mention that
point.
to our tourism director.
So
Which is kind of a crude pump and haul as well.
yes, Danny.
Maybe we check with Jamie, because he's probably gonna have an ADA approved porta potty.
That's right. I mean, the permanent one would have to be ADA. That's right.
But the porta potty would have to be ADA too, I would imagine.
Yeah, they do have the type that are ADA, right?
So it sounds like maybe by the time we actually have this before the joint meeting, it would be helpful if that was already taken care of, so there wouldn't be any question.
Okay.
I mean, that's,
Yeah, that's 6 weeks out.
yeah. Well,
Well, they here, we have 3 weeks basically. So
that would probably make everybody feel more comfortable about that aspect, yeah. Any other question or comment? Yes.
I just have a note here from our last discussion about this, that we talked about an affidavit from Mr. Whiteman.
Mhm.
I don't know if we still want to do anything like that. I'm just bringing up a note that I didn't know.
he did send it. I mean, I do have his consent, but I can send him an email, just put it in the file. I mean, he did come in with us and sit down when we fill the application. But I can get a consent from him that says, an email or something that he's he understands that he's applying for this.
That also sounds like a good thing to have by the joint meeting. Any other question or comment for Ligon? Okay, would the applicant like to address more or? No, okay. Does anyone have any question for the applicant? I think we've given him a couple pointers that we'd like to see done, yeah. All right, any public comment? I see our public is pretty much left. Okay. All right. In that case, next case is case number S-07-22-18. Woodbury Forest School has submitted a site plan to construct a multipurpose athletic building on its campus. The building is proposed to be roughly 23,215 square feet and will be utilized for basketball, pickleball, and various other recreational activities. The total site disturbance would be 0.99 acres, approximately 43,122 square feet. The building would be near or off Tiger Drive and is located on Madison County Tax Map 66-8. All right, Ligon. Thank you.
Well, we have all the visuals and everything in front of you. It's a really nice looking building, as you can see. I'm a little bit confused on some of the bill. I don't know. I have some visuals, but you can see the footprint of the building. We have all the plans. They still all the site work plans and ENS stuff, and I mean they won't have to submit a stormwater stormwater plan to DEQ. It's just under that acre, as you noticed. We haven't gotten the construction plans yet, but we would expect those pretty soon. Other than that, that's about all I have.
As expected, this looks very thorough and complete. Does anyone have a question for Ligon about this?
Well, they have submitted a lot of. We have site plan and everything. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, this is. I mean.
Page right here. I want to see the bundle to see what's happening.
Yeah, I tried it with the. I do have the whole submittal.
Was that something after some of your office?
No, I can email it to you. I can put it in the January 6th packet. Probably would attach it as an addendum on the other because it's a large. I just try to attach the ones I think that would be the most relevant as far as what you're looking, because you can see there's sort of a little bit of a layout here. It shows, and even.
You may want to come by because I know things like that, he's tangible when it comes to plans. So
You can kind of
it may be good to come by, Mr. Elliott, if you'd like to be able to roll them out.
you can see right here kind of has where it is, and you have their elevations and.
I do have one question here. This is labeled A0301. It's a set of elevations that does not look like what was being discussed as far as what they're talking about. On the backside of that appears to be the elevation for what they're discussing.
Yeah, I think that is the wrong.
Right.
This doesn't relate to.
Right.
Okay. That could be kind of confusing there.
This is
That's one of
in
their.
that area behind the stadium. There's a little parking area and then to the west for those tennis courts.
Mhm.
It would restrict, it would eliminate some parking, but it's not a significant amount of parking. It's probably a good place. I assume, Ligon, that this is a recreational
Mhm.
facility, not for varsity sports, but
That-
for recreation.
That's right.
Yeah. They need that up there, I think.
Any other question for Ligon?
This is the.
Right, yeah. I think you said, this is described as, oh, I'm not sure how they call it. It's one of these tension fabric structures.
I think the roof is.
Yeah, okay.
This is what
Mhm.
here's the stadium. Here's the back of the facility. And this is parking here. These are sports cars.
Other than wondering what pickleball is, otherwise it's.
Pickleball is all the rage, I'll tell you.
Okay,
It really is. It's gonna be clip spinning.
okay. Any other question?
For non-athletes.
Any other question for Ligon then? And I assume that the applicant's not here, so.
They know about it.
They know about it, yeah. Okay, it looks very complete, I would say. I don't see any problem from our viewpoint, unless somebody else sees something that I don't. Okay. That being the case, the next case is case number OA-07-22-19. It is proposed to amend Madison County subdivision ordinance and add an Article 4-2-3. This proposed amended or new Article 4-2-3 would be as follows. 4-2-3. Periodic, partial, and final release of any bond, escrow, letter of credit, or other performance guarantee. The county shall have 30 days from receiving written notice from a landowner, subdivider, or developer at all to inspect projects to confirm all bonded work and improvements have been completed in compliance and conformity with the terms of a performance bond. After confirmation, the county shall release that portion of the bond for which the improvements / construction has been completed. If all bonded work and improvements have been completed, then the entire bond will be released. Code of Virginia, Section 15.2-2245, A, B, C, D, E, and F as amended. Okay, Ligon?
I know we talked about this last month. I just sort of combined what I had written before with what Sean had suggested and put it into a paragraph. So I think that this fairly self-explanatory.
I think, Ligon, that there's a problem with this language. You use the term all bonded work twice. When you use it first to inspect projects to confirm all bonded work and improvements have been completed. The thrust of this is that only a portion of the bonded work has been completed, but that they want to release the bond on that portion. So should it say something other than that first instance, other than all bonded work?
Yeah, because if it's partial, then you're not talking about all of it.
We just take out all.
That would be my suggestion. Just change the word all to the in the third line. I think that would take care of it.
About the subject of bonded work.
Mhm.
I would have no objection to that.
Yeah, referring to the written notice that is.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, we can just note that at the meeting. I've already sent the ad to the paper, but I think making that change wouldn't be a radical.
Right, that's not it's not a particularly substantive change, but
Right.
more
Corrective,
clarification.
Yeah. Okay, any other question or comment on that? Yes, Pete.
I guess I got a question for Sean. It sounds like to me that we don't have a choice what we do here because the state's requiring this. Is that correct?
That makes us sound like we're victims. But yes,
We're good citizens.
we need we need an ordinance like this or substantially similar to this to be in compliance with the Virginia State Code.
So basically, we're working on the wording.
Correct.
Any other question? Okay, with that minor change, I think we're looking at something we can work with. Okay. Any other question at all? All right, that brings us to the old business portion of the meeting. Peter, if you would introduce your short-term rental policy and accessory dwelling units ordinance that have been suggested here.
Cardi has one.
Yeah, at a previous meeting,
We noted that there was an incompatibility between the short-term lodging unit definition and the ADU definition. And we proposed a solution to that, but we never actually wrote up the solution. And so this week, I endeavored to do that with my memo that I think you all have of June 13. If everybody's read it, I think we can talk about it. But if people haven't read it, I would have no objection to deferring this until a subsequent workshop. Any views on that? Everybody read it, or would you rather defer the discussion?
I have a question that doesn't answer what you're asking, so I'll come back to me when you finish that part of it.
Go ahead.
Okay, it's probably very obvious, but we're going to be talking next about the private road situation and the ordinance that we're trying to get that through. If either the ADU or any short-term unit is a separate standalone thing, I guess my question is this. Will they use the same driveway or have a separate driveway off that lot? It's going to be on a lot, a unit of land, right, where the main house is. So it'll be somewhere near that, either part of it and or separate or whatever. Question is, should there be something saying that they should be utilizing the private drive that the main house uses? See what I'm saying? I'm trying not to or is there somewhere that says that? Because we're trying to not have as many people access our private roads as, you know what I'm saying?
Well, I would just say that that's kind of a little bit separate. And actually, the updated subdivision, that's actually, your version has one, the committee, and I had a little bit of change.
Right, but does it say specifically this kind of ADU?
Mhm.
Well, I'll read it again. I didn't.
6-2-2 on this subdivision. But I mean, my feeling, and just not to interject here, but the short-term lodging, we've done it around for a while. I mean, what Peter has written here to me is exactly what we've been talking about. And I think it's spot on, and it really, it's evolved a little bit since we started talking about it, but that's.
I would note, Faye, that in the proposed restrictions and requirements, that there's a requirement for off-street parking. One of the things that we need to do really before we finalize anything on this, and we haven't done it, is to go through these proposed requirements and restrictions and discuss them. And as I say, I'm happy to do that tonight or in a subsequent meeting if people have not yet thought about them. The one thing that I would say about the incompatibility, there still is an interesting point on apropos that you can have a short-term lodging unit in a by right in a single-family home. And you can have an ADU in a single-family home. And an ADU, if you adopt these requirements and restrictions, would be long-term only. But the difference would be that an ADU is defined more precisely, and it requires an independent living facility, bathroom, kitchen, separate entrance. So that would be the distinguishing factor. Steve, I would be happy to work with Ligon in writing this up. I think Ligon had mentioned at one point that he wanted to write this in ordinance form, and I'd be happy to work with him if he wants to do that.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes.
On the requirements and restrictions, on the requirements and restrictions, it says the owner of the primary dwelling and the ADU must occupy either the preliminary dwelling or the ADU. And the issue I guess I got there is, let's say that Jane passes away and she's the owner of the property and she has ADU rented to someone. Now John, her son, inherits the property. He don't want us to rent it. So if we put that in there, how would he be able to rent those two and not live there?
Well, the point of this, Pete, is and talking on the basis of reading about experiences elsewhere, is that you're likely to have in these ADU situations a much cleaner thing without a junked up yard or whatever, if you have the owner living in one of the facilities.
I agree with you, Peter, but at the same time, you're taking away the opportunity that somebody may have inherited a problem and they could have the opportunity to rent the property. And if we put that in there, they wouldn't be allowed to do that.
I hear you, and I sense a dilemma that we'll have to resolve.
Well, we're going to ask this just to kind of get one thing, if we could check one thing off on the short-term lodging unit, the way it's defined. I mean, is that something that looks like it would be ready to be advertised?
I have a question.
Yes, Francois.
So it says short-term lodging unit means a single-family home or portion thereof and an additional standalone structure. Shouldn't it be or?
I'm sorry, Francoise, I just didn't hear you.
Okay, I'm not sure this works well. So second line of the definition, the first and, should it be an or?
Or maybe an and or.
Yeah, I'm kind of a.
Oh, yeah, yeah, I had trouble with that myself, and it mean, the way it reads though is okay, and it means a single family home or portions thereof, and it also means an additional standalone structure. That's the way I intended that to be read.
Right now, it sounds as if you need a single family home.
But I see your point, I noticed it myself.
So
We can fix that
you think
somehow.
just a slash or would be
Yeah.
okay there?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sure and or really accomplishes it. I think
Right,
you need the word
just or. Yeah.
Or just
Yeah.
And I would probably, I mean, not that it really matters when you read these things, but to the extent the general public might be reading it, I would, put it in bold type, the word or, so that there's no confusion on that.
Say that last again, please, Sean.
To make it clear to the general public, it might be appropriate to just emphasize the word or. Now, literally, I mean, so far as the courts would be concerned, boldface type wouldn't make a difference.
Mhm.
But remember, a lot of times we write laws and ordinances to educate the public. So having that in bold, or when someone comes and applies, making sure that they understand that might be the way to do it.
My
But the point, I think the
suggestion.
word or is
Okay.
preferable to and under the circumstance.
Point well taken. My suggestion, Steve, is that because Ligon wanted to write this in ordinance form, that
Well, before.
he and I
Yeah.
work together. And if people have comments tonight on the requirements and restrictions, we ought to air those tonight.
Yeah, well, we've already got one significant question about that, of which, looking past the initial use, yes, is that restriction viable?
Are we talking about ADUs now?
Unfortunately. So
Okay.
Let's go back.
I wanted us to get the short-term rental thing
Yeah,
done first.
let's go
And we
back
can
to
go to
the
that one.
short-term lodging.
So if we throw the or in, what I can do is come back, work with Peter, be very simple,
Yeah.
come back next work session with this written in an ordinance form that you can see, this will be amended for the short-term rentals.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the following sentence there, I have, I'm probably nitpicking here like I always do, but where it says parcels large enough, e.g. 6 or more acres in an A1 zoning district. Okay, that can be potentially misinterpreted. What if I have 5 of these short-term units? 6 acres is insufficient for 5 of these, right? We're looking at basically a unit per 3 acres.
That's right.
So we're still considering these
No more
as
than one.
uses.
No more than one, yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, the 6 or more acres is fine if there's no more than one. But we're defining the whole term here. So I think we need to say that a little more specifically, e.g. at least 3 acres per for each lodging unit, short-term lodging unit.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what I can do is reword this where it just refers to the minimum lot size for each, like in A1, it's
For
for
each
that,
use,
right.
yeah.
And that would be very simple to just,
Yeah, that would also satisfy that, yeah. I'm a little worried about simply saying 6 or more acres because somebody may decide, okay, I've got 7 acres, I can put 5 of these things up.
yeah, I think that would be a simple enough to,
That would be overreach.
Well, I have faith in humanity. Okay, any other question on the short-term lodging? I think we're very close to having this ready to present.
So just to be clear, I'll just write it up in the ordinance form, work with Peter, and then we'll bring it back next month. And if it looks good, maybe we can move forward for a public hearing September. The months just get by so quick. Okay.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, any other comment or question on the short-term lodging rental?
I have one more.
Yes, Francois. Is that on the short-term rental or is that?
No, ADU.
Okay, let's try to finish this one. I think we're close to finished. So, any other comment on the short-term rental? Okay, so Peter, you and Ligon will be getting this into its actual presentable form for the.
Let me know when you want to work on it.
Okay. Excellent, excellent. Okay. Well, Francois, you have a question about the ADU then?
You stated a few minutes ago that 6-2-2 in the packet for the private roads and something about ADU. I don't see it.
Okay, there's two different.
Right, could we kind of go about it in a different way that maybe makes some sense, and we'll get to that? And
Yeah,
she's
let's
asking
when we
something
get
about
when we get to this, when we talk about that.
right.
But I do have a.
Document this. This was under other. Did you publish this under other
Yes.
on the website?
Yes. Uh huh. So,
No.
so this kind of goes to the question: if you put an extra house in a lot, and about the road. So think about your best just to talk about ODUs, and we'll get to that and we'll
Right,
talk
we'll get to
the
that in a
next.
moment.
Yeah, because the ADU by its very nature is not it's not legally a second use of the property. So it does the yes.
Yeah. Just very quickly, I'm going to repeat him on that one, so that when y'all talk about that, maybe.
Okay.
Sort of flip back and forth.
And what was that
You
again?
mean the
Just to make sure.
About the
owner occupancy?
About the owner occupancy.
We're talking about ADUs.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's on
that's-
No, on the
ADU.
short, that's why I'm
That's on
apologizing for
ADU.
going backwards again.
Well, those restrictions don't apply to short-term rental. I
Yeah.
think.
That
I thought that was.
the
Oh, that
restrictions.
was ADU.
Yes.
The restrictions are on the
Alright.
ADU.
Okay.
Yeah, now we're on ADUs. Want to talk about ADUs now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we're also pretty close on that one, but.
Yeah, I think the owner occupancy, that's a good question. I mean, whether, you look at, say there's a large house and then a small ADU, I mean, you sit there and watch it from the road, the traffic that comes in and out, people, whether or not, understand the rationale behind it. But yeah, there could be a situation where maybe the owner of the principal house, rents it to a child or someone, and they move into the house, would they be violating it? So that's a good, and I know when we adopted something like this, we talked about that, but we just said that,
Discussing, it seems like this is sort of similar to when we were discussing the case a few months ago of the farm where they had the yurt on it and they had a couple, and one of the neighbors came in and was being concerned about what was going to be happening as far as event on that property. Like, in other words, we were limiting it to whatever was requested, and they were concerned about whether or not it could turn into a big event venue kind of thing, maybe just once a year, whatever. But anyway, one of the things that I said then, and I'll say it again now, is if we write something in an ordinance that requires the neighbors or anyone else to squeal on their, I just don't like that. I agree. I mean, if you require that they live there, that's one thing, but I also agree with Pete that I can understand we're having a whole lot more inherited kind of property now than we ever did continue. And a lot of people are buying our property right now that do not live here. I don't know what they want to turn it into. I don't know how it was for the event venues or whatever else they might want to do. That's a that they can't.
Once the initial purpose has been served, it's now an ADU. We can't change that. So what do we do when the original owner of this piece of
Shut down the ADU.
wants? So if
And then she's no longer with teacher. I'm still living in the main house.
you're simply
With us in 5 years. Teacher buys a house. Firefighter.
you decide what now. Property with a guest house.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a package group.
Because you only had 5 acres and they won.
Clearly then can't stay there.
It's not is your fear that while there, so do you think rent the main house out, rent the ADU that thinking about what a good situation. I mean,
Can't you do that? That we have to take that out.
yeah.
It goes to that question. And this is a pure position that rental properties are not as well maintained as owner occupied. And one of the things that you would probably be, it's going to be on a lot of our property, all the rest of it, properties. Subdivisions do not have homeowners associations or anything like that. So somebody who owns units and then buys a second lot, then suddenly he's controlling the neighborhood. And if he doesn't live there, that's when you have the erosion of quality. You get lots of complaints. From the incidents of crime. You have the possibility of the creation of some blight situations. The owner occupancy may be something to keep. On the other hand, if the concern is, making sure that property owners have relatively unfettered rights, having the ownership requirement, is an impediment to that. But again, these are policy decisions for y'all to decide.
and passes one of the daughters or sons. This England special use permit has been violated. Part because you
And that's where the problem. I just don't do for herself, and that's
Right. Yeah.
getting it any easier.
What about?
But if it really matters, you know, but on the other hand, if somebody is happens a lot, Orange County, it's its own set of forced by, you know, and neighbors don't like it because it creates problems that we really don't want.
I've got quite a few.
There has been a captured in notion of ADUs and much more they have in rural areas. And in cities, often people have, they're a little bit less personal. Agree totally with Sean that so either the main house is to ensure that somebody is there insisting that the place and is not a here and I guess it's something which situation. And we've done that, then we can move forward and put, we haven't really ever taken the planning commission favor permitting a Madison County.
Were ADUs. What this is. And you're gonna force him to be able to rent it, because if he don't move there, rent that place.
He can rent.
One of them.
He can,
Can't rent both of those.
right.
So then you have a renter and
Yeah.
Well, but it's less than a house. It's under these square feet. So
He can rent it because legally it is in the don't meet the requirement. Two structures.
Some,
It's just, you simply cannot have an ordinance in here, a requirement. It's going to come up and it's not going to be enforced. There's just no way to have that in there.
and in that regard, consider what the market is and what the trend is. And I may have to apologize to each of you since I've only been a Madison County resident for about 4 months. Think about who the market is going to be for these units. What we're really talking about is the work either in Charlottesville, Culpeper, possibly Northern Virginia. It's going to be active investment in this community. We have seen this in other communities where when you start down this path, they live in Madison instead of Prince William County because they're saving any meaningful connection to this community. I mention all of that because I think you need to be very careful about this sort of thing, because what you're doing is creating the perfectly humane, and I like the idea of doing thorny issues that are likely to like this.
with those statements.
Also, Sean, though, I see in the real estate market, and I'm involved in selling a lot of real estate, there's a lot of people wanting to come into this area that's wanting to bring some of their family. I see that a lot now.
If you came and got a special use permit for one, it's got to be a long-term to an Airbnb. It is ultimately getting, Cardi is talking this, and he probably folks in older family and living facility. I think this question about whether I probably wouldn't. Well, that's just me. It's definitely something or the other.
Okay. Well, is there anyone who thinks that an ADU is